So our next lesson will be on cloud networking concepts. So in this module, we'll complete the following exercises. So this will cover network segmentation in the cloud, network services and cloud security, protocols to secure cloud traffic, hardening cloud-based resources. And after completing this module, we should be able to create a virtual network in Microsoft Azure, create a subnet also in Microsoft Azure, configure a virtual network, explore Azure Cloud Shell, create a VM with PowerShell, verify the successful creation of VM via SSH, applying application security groups, configure application gateway, and lastly, disabling unnecessary ports. Right, so in exercise 1, network segmentation. In network segmentation in the cloud, it is a part of a layered defense system using network segmentation. We can add a layer of security to the resource within the cloud. This is accomplished through various tools Azure offers natively in its platform, from the configuration of virtual networks and various components associated with it. Now, there are many different options in security, and that can be applied to secure resources. However, it is important that you can separate those resources out into different network segments. As different resources will have various functions, it becomes imperative that their network connections maintain a segmented structure to reflect these separations of functionality. So in this exercise, we will create a virtual network and subnet using the Azure portal. Now for our first task, we will create a virtual network in Microsoft Azure. So an Azure virtual network is used to connect resources on the Azure platform. Now, different cloud resources and devices can be connected to facilitate communication between these devices, such as connecting different Azure virtual machines on the same virtual network. So in this task, we will create a virtual network and assign a pool of IP addresses to the network. So from the taskbar, let's click on the Microsoft Edge. And in the Microsoft Azure portal, let's click on Search Resources, and type in virtual networks. Now under services, select virtual networks. Now from the virtual networks page, let's click on create. Now on the basics tabs, click on resource group and select the one in the drop down. Now in the lab infrastructure, the Azure account has been pre-populated with a resource group. So a restriction prevents users from creating a new resource group, and it is essential to select the pre-populated research group in the task. So under instance details, let's type in the name, cloud, select UK South in the region, and then click next. Our next step, from the security tab, notice that the security settings can be disabled or enabled. Now click the eye icon to view the following information on these settings. So for Enable Azure Bastion, it deploys an instance of the Azure Bastion service and attaches it to this virtual network. When it comes to Azure Firewall, it deploys an instance of the Azure Firewall and attaches it to this virtual network. So Bastion hosts Azure Bastion service is fully platform managed PaaS service that you provision inside our virtual network. It provides secure and seamless RDP or SSH connectivity to your virtual machines directory in the Azure portal over SSL. So when you connect via Azure Bastion, your virtual machines do not need a public IP address. When it comes to DOS protection standard, the DOS protection plan is a paid service that offers enhanced DOS mitigation capabilities via adaptive tuning, attack notification, and telemetry to protect against the impacts of a DOS attack for all protected resources within this virtual network. Now, basic DOS protection is integrated into the Azure platform by default and at no additional cost. Now, Azure Firewall is managed cloud-based network security service that protects your Azure virtual network resources. Now, on the security tab, tick Enable Azure Firewall and click Next. Now, from the IP address tab, add an IP address space. Now, in the Add an IP address space flyout window, enter the following IP. And in the address space size, select from the drop-down menu for 56 addresses. Notice that the number of addresses available next to this recently added IP address range Okay, let's select the address space drop-down menu and click 25.128 address. And click Add. Okay, let's click on Add an IP address again. And this time, let's type in a different IP address and select 256 addresses and click Add. Now notice that in a real-life scenario, review the vendor documentation to ensure that they're not taking a portion of that pool and reserving it for other infrastructure that you need to attach to these networks. Now scroll down on the page and click Add Azure Firewall Subnet. Let's check.